Well, hello. Welcome to Orchid Bloom's podcast. Welcome back, bloomers. I am your host, Orchid Brown, with Orchid Bloom's podcast. You can find me on TikTok, X, and Blue Skies at Orchid I Brown. I wanted to take this moment to let you all know that a new blog post has now been posted on taonetwork.ca/blog called Self-Made. Last week's blog post is called Dead Weight. So I hope you take this time to read Dead Weight and then also read Self-Made. Take the time to read the blog post and definitely go on Instagram at The Ambitious Net and leave a comment underneath the post. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on what my definition of self-made means. Now, this week's podcast episode is on the prosperity mindset shift. This episode today will cover abundance, prosperity, as well as blessings. We need to learn the difference so that we can truly identify the miracles and blessings that are in our lives. And this will hopefully allow us to walk into our highest self. Before we talk about the prosperity mindset shift, I want to break down the difference between abundance and prosperity. Most people use abundance and prosperity interchangeably, but they aren't the same. Understanding their difference is key to unlocking the mindset shift that transforms your life. Abundance is a state of being. It's about awareness, gratitude, and openness. It's realizing that there's enough for everyone and that you already have what you need to attract more. For example, feeling rich in peace, time, health, or love, even before the materials show up. Prosperity, on the other hand, is a state of flow and alignment. It's when your inner abundance begins to manifest into tangible results. Prosperity is the evidence of abundance in motion. For example, opportunities, financial growth, thriving relationships, and creative success flowing naturally because your mindset and energy are aligned. We first have to recognize that prosperity isn't just about wealth, it's about alignment. Abundance starts in the mind, but prosperity shows up in your reality. Here's the thing. Many people practice abundance in thought or gratitude, but they never bridge it into prosperity. They feel rich in spirit, yet their reality doesn't reflect it. That's because prosperity requires alignment. Your thoughts, beliefs, and actions must be in harmony with what you want to manifest. And that is something that I did not understand before. I kept viewing abundance and prosperity as two separate things. I've never truly connected them as one, where one is the thought and then the other is the actual manifestation, like the process. So I wanted to do this podcast episode because I felt like maybe I'm not the only one who has had these thoughts before, not understanding that they're not truly the same, that we actually need to understand the function of each thing. Even when you're praying for abundance, you know, it's about the mind. It's about how you feel. It's about your gratitude. And then you have prosperity, which is not the same as abundance. It's literally what you see in your day-to-day life. So I felt that this podcast episode was important to understanding that, because it is. We need to understand the difference so that we know what we're truly doing in our lives, and we want what we're doing to be effective. We want to truly reap everything that we've poured into and sowed in a positive way. So here's a question to reflect on. Are you feeling abundant but seeing little prosperity in your life? Or is your abundance and prosperity aligned? Personally, I feel that I am abundant in my life. But to answer the second question, I don't feel that abundance and prosperity is aligned in my life at this current moment. Now that we understand the difference, how do we shift from abundance thinking to prosperity living? It starts with your mindset. So let's start with step one, which is identifying scarcity thinking. which we covered on the Trauma Shapes Money podcast episode. So if you have not listened to that, I would recommend you go back and listen to that before you listen to this podcast episode. Identifying scarcity thinking means to notice when fear, compromise, or lack drives your decision. That's scarcity speaking. Step 2, reframe limiting beliefs, which again, we've covered in the Trauma Shapes Money podcast episode. In step 2, you replace I can't or I'm not enough with statements like I'm capable of growth and there is enough for me too. This isn't fluff. It's rewiring your mind to receive. Step 3, align your actions with abundance. Prosperity doesn't happen overnight, but when you consistently practice alignment, the results will follow. Think about a time when you trusted the process and something unexpected show up. That's prosperity knocking. Even when we understand abundance and prosperity, blocks often get in the way. Common ones include self-doubt, fear of success, waiting for external validation, and comparing yourself to others. Sounds like my past life. Here's what helps. Daily affirmations that reinforce prosperity, surrounding yourself with like-minded people, and consistently reflecting on your wins, no matter how small. Remember, prosperity is a mental, emotional, and action-based shift. If one piece is missing, you'll feel stuck. Ask yourself, where am I holding myself back from prosperity? Which of my beliefs are keeping me small? I have to say that I feel abundant in almost every area of my life. I do. I feel abundant in health, peace, love, all of it. Just overflow of all of it. I'm still learning to move into prosperity phase. That's where I'm stuck. And this is why this podcast episode is so important to me. I don't yet see the tangible results I want in certain areas. I know I'm not alone in this, which is why I feel that this is a conversation that I needed to have on the podcast episode with all of you. And that is a reason why we're going through this together. And hopefully we will see a shift that we've been waiting for. Sometimes abundance is comforting and we unconsciously resist the actions or risk prosperity requires. Prosperity may require letting go of fear, taking new steps, or creating new habits. How do you actually live prosperity? It's about integrating it into your daily choices. When it comes to finances, smart money habits align with abundance. When it comes to relationship, give and receive freely without fear or scarcity. When it comes to career and business, pursue opportunities that align with your values and purpose. In a previous podcast episode, I asked the question to myself, but I really wanted you as the audience to reflect on it. And I have a very similar question, but specifically towards prosperity. So are my choices reflecting prosperity or just survival? We've had this conversation in the Trauma Shapes Money podcast episode. Prosperity is a mindset, a practice, and a flow. It's not just a destination, it's how you live each day. When you make this shift, life responds. Doors open, opportunities show up. Your inner abundance becomes your outer reality. The shift isn't a single event, it's a transition of identity that shows up through subtle but consistent inner and outer changes. We keep waiting for prosperity to arrive, but the shift isn't always loud, it's quiet. It happens when your habits, your language, your focus, and your emotional reaction starts aligning with what you want, even when nothing has manifested yet. Examples of early signs of a shift. You stop reacting from fear and start responding from peace. You say no to things that used to drain you. You notice synchronicities, right people, right timing, right ideas. You take action even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. I can say a few out of all of what I just shared is something that I do. I had mentioned in a previous podcast episode that there are certain things that I did before that always led me down the wrong path. And now, even though they're super small, they are super small. Many people do the exact same thing. And these are advice that came from other people as well. Now I look back at it and I thought, if I had not done that, I wouldn't have ended up there. And I find myself just saying, you know what? When you really take a step back and you see what it looks like when people do this, when people do this and they actually get the desired effect that they want, they come out into the world and they said, this is what you need to do and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, they don't talk about what happens afterwards. And so when I started trying to apply that same habit to my life, I noticed that it led me to situations where I was like, I could have skipped this. I could have skipped this. This was not worth it at all. Now I'm choosing not to do that again. Now that I'm looking back at the situation and looking back at all the advice that I've received, I never considered that what was being recommended that I did was an act of desperation, an act of impulsivity. It's highly recommended to do these sorts of things, and you hear it everywhere you go. Everyone swears by it. But why is it that after you do that act and you get exactly what you want, why is it they're so quiet? They're not talking about what is actually happening after they got what they wanted. They showed a level of desperation that they didn't realize was a form of desperation at the time. So I was like, oh, whoa. Let me take a step back. If doing this looks desperate, is it prosperity? Is it abundance? And it's sometimes the simplest things. As an example that I'm referring to right now is that when I was applying for my previous job and I applied for it, I did the interview and everything, it's recommended that you send an email, right? Just to do a follow-up. And I did the follow-up and I got a vague answer. I was like, okay. So I waited some time and I contacted them again. And she flipped out. And I was like, what is this flipping out? Girl, I haven't talked to you in 2 months. Why are you flipping out at me over something as basic as what is happening with this position? And in that moment, I took a step back and I realized, oh, the fact that you have to reach out to a job, giving them the opportunity to do the follow-up that they said they were going to do, maybe that looks desperate. And I thought, oh my God, I shouldn't have to chase you down for something you said you were going to do, right? You said after the interview, you'd let me know. What do you mean it's been 3 months and you still don't know? What do you mean? In that moment, looking at that situation, I thought, you know what? I think I'm giving the impression that I'm desperate. I'm desperate to be at a place where I know is not good for me. Because the fact that I have to chase you down means that there's a problem. There's a problem with that workplace. We need to start learning how to identify toxic environment ahead of time. Now I'm trying to kick down the door for an opportunity that was clearly not meant for me. Yeah, I got it. But then when I got there, I was like, what the fuck is this? Never did I think prior to starting that job that maybe what was happening was a way to say, hey girl, you don't want this job. You don't want to work at this place. Based on the way this woman is behaving, this is not a good place to work. It didn't dawn on me until I got there and I was like, how did I miss the signs, even though the signs were screaming at me? So now you will never catch me emailing a job asking for an update. You will never catch me asking what is happening. You said you'd get back to me in about 2 weeks and you didn't. What's going on? You will never catch me doing that again. I take it as, oh, I'm being saved. I am being saved. I do not need to be in a toxic environment with psychotic people because I'm telling you, the last job, psychotic motherfuckers. Learn to spot the red flags and drop and roll and then run. It was not my blessing. It was not my abundance. It wasn't even close to prosperity. Wasn't even close. Now, going over that list, I can say that that's prosperity energy starting to move. And due to the changes that I have made, and I just gave you an example of a change that I've made, and it's so basic, but now I feel that I'm moving into the prosperity energy. It's just not visible as money or success as of yet. Prosperity is energy. It's a vibration, a frequency, a flow, not just a financial state or a result. That's why people can feel abundant, grateful, even content, yet still not see tangible prosperity. The energy hasn't shifted yet. Abundance is the belief that you already have access to everything you need. Prosperity is when that belief turns into movement, when your inner world starts influencing your outer reality. Abundance is peace. Prosperity is flow. Abundance is the seed. Prosperity is the garden blooming. You can't rush it, but you can nurture it by managing your energy. That energy includes your emotions, thoughts, reaction, and daily alignment. If you're abundant but not prosperous, it usually means the energy is static, calm, grounded, peaceful, but not yet flowing outward. Abundance is still water, reflective and calm. Prosperity is running water, movement, direction, and flow. The shift happens when your energy starts moving through instant action, new choices, or even your courage to leave behind what no longer fits. And I've been doing that. As you will read in the dead weight blog post, you gotta release the dead weight. Prosperity energy isn't something you chase. It's something you become. You activate it when you move differently, think differently, and trust differently. If your mindset says, I believe in prosperity, but your energy says, I don't trust it will happen, the universe listens to your energy, not your words. Your thoughts set the direction, but your energy determines the speed. Prosperity flows when your beliefs, words, or emotions all move in the same direction. This is where the shift gets real, not when the opportunity appears, but when the internal frequency finally matches the prosperity you want to experience. How to elevate your prosperity energy daily. Gratitude keeps energy high, but not passive. Intentional actions turn belief into movement. Joy and curiosity open channels for opportunity. Self-worth determines what level of prosperity you'll allow in. Prosperity doesn't come to the version of you who doubts your worth. It flows to the version of you who believes they deserve to receive. When your energy shifts, life feels lighter. You stop forcing and start flowing. You stop chasing signs and start noticing synchronicities. That's the real prosperity shift. Your internal frequency has changed and the external world begins to respond. When the shift happens, it's subtle. You'll notice peace replaces panic, clarity replaces confusion, and opportunities show up without you trying to control the timing. That's prosperity energy at work. Now I want to close this episode with the difference between blessings and prosperity. Blessings and prosperity are often mistaken as the same, but they are on different frequencies and serve different purposes in your spiritual and practical growth. Blessings are the expression of grace. They're the gifts, protection, or moments of favor that flows to you, often unearned, to remind you that you're supported. Blessings are divine reminders that you are seen, covered, and cared for. Even when you haven't yet reached prosperity, they often come as emotional peace, sudden relief, unexpected help, or a moment of clarity right when you need it the most. Blessings are often spiritual energy, emotional reassurance, inner calm, or unexpected favors. They are moments that says you're on the right path, keep going. They're not always material. Sometimes they're emotional or energetic confirmations that prepares you for prosperity. Prosperity is what happens when your energy, mindset, and actions aligns with divine flow. It is not just provision, it's sustained growth. Blessings are divine moments of grace. Prosperity is the ongoing flow that happens when you're aligned with that grace. Blessings can appear as isolated miracles. Prosperity is when your life becomes the channel of miracles, when your blessings start multiplying through you. Sometimes blessings are the spark, and prosperity is a system that grows from it. A blessing might be meeting the right person. Prosperity is the partnership that flourishes from that connection. A blessing might be financial gifts. Prosperity is learning how to manage multiple and align with financial flow after that gift. A blessing might be the idea that comes in prayer. Prosperity is flowing through and turning that idea into a living vision. Blessings introduce you to possibilities. Prosperity is introducing you to process. Blessing fills your heart. Prosperity fills your life. Blessings lift your spirit. Prosperity builds your world. Now, I hope you get it, because I gave you lots of examples. Lots. Gratitude keeps blessing flowing, but stewardship turns them into prosperity. We receive blessings to remind us we're not forgotten, but prosperity requires us to rise into partnership with what's divine. It's not about chasing favors, it's about becoming the vessel that can hold it. As we close today's podcast episode, I want to bring everything back full circle, from abundance to prosperity to blessings. Abundance is the awareness that you already have access to what you need. It's gratitude, peace, spiritual richness. But prosperity, that's what happens when your inner abundance begins to move. Prosperity is abundance in motion, when belief becomes alignment and alignment becomes flow. Blessing reminds us that we are seen and supported. There are those divine moments that whisper, "You're not forgotten." But prosperity asks us to rise above just receiving. It asks us to become the vessel that multiplies what we have been given. And I hope you remember the scripture that I gave you in a previous podcast episode about the talents. It is very important that we be like those slaves or servants who knew how to multiply what they were given. Blessings comes to you. Prosperity flows through you. So even if you're like me, abundant, grateful, but still waiting for prosperity to show up, know this: the shift is already happening. It may be silent, it may be subtle, but it's real. Keep showing up as the prosperous version of yourself and trust that life will catch up to your energy. This week, I encourage you to reflect on where you've been blessed, how you've been abundant, and what it looks like for you to live in prosperity daily, intentionally, and energetically. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the prosperity mindset shift. If this podcast spoke to your spirit, share it with someone who's also in the process of shifting. And as always, keep blooming, keep trusting, and keep aligning with your higher self, because prosperity begins with you. Thank you again for joining me today on the Orchid Blooms podcast. Your support is appreciated. Take this time and subscribe, follow, rate, and leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice. Our social media pages are Orchid Blooms YouTube channel, the Ambitious Obsession Network on YouTube, at the Ambitious Ops on Twitter, at The Ambitious Net on Instagram. If this episode resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep blooming. I hope you have a splendid day.